Welcome to Tell Me More, an Allsteel podcast where design meets innovation and we explore the limitless potential of the modern workplace.
Welcome to season 4 of the Tell Me More podcast, you guys.
Holy cow, season
We're
4.
here.
That's
Season
amazing.
4. We've made it.
We did
Which
it.
just means it's in 3 years. This is the fourth.
Fourth
So
year.
that feels a little better.
Yeah.
Tell Me More is where we discuss the intersection of the human experience, the workplace, the research that we have gone on behind the scenes, and really translating all of that into the environments in which people work and interact today. My name is Andrea Gauss, and I think I'm joined by some familiar faces here. We've got Ricky Crow, Jordan Arnold, and last but not least, Dr. Lauren Gant. And we're really going to be exploring a big question here in season 4. And that question is, how do we design for focus in a world that constantly competes for it? Right?
Well, and I think it's more than season 4 too. Like, this is 2026 for us.
That's right.
Right? Like this is
ahead.
what we're exploring for the year and kind of what we're looking at as a team.
That's right. So let's start by looking a little bit at what's shaping behind what we're exploring in 2026 and unpack that a little bit. So we talk all of 2025 with clients, with influencers. We did some of our own research. We're going to dig into a little bit there. And the themes of dimensions related to focus, rhythms, personal rhythms, team rhythms, and how spaces can come together to support all of that. Those themes consistently bubble to the top. So we thought we'd dive in a little bit more. So our thought really is that focus matters more today, not because the actual work has changed in a significant way, but we have really kind of emphasized other areas of what we do within a workplace, and to the point where we've then kind of just forgotten about it.
Well,
Forgotten the idea of focus.
I think we had to take that step to take a look at those community driving activities because we had spent decades focusing on focus, right? Like decades prioritizing just those focused tasks. So I think it was really important for us to take that moment to say like, hey, let's make sure that we're addressing some of those critical elements that maybe had been forgotten for a while. But to your point, I think we've spent that time, we've exerted that energy around that. And so now it's time to realign that and make sure that we're also addressing how focus has changed.
That's right. I mean, so much energy has been put into the social aspect of who we are as human beings and this need for connection in a physical environment. And that's been really, really important. But I think a few things that we stumbled upon maybe throughout last year as we visited clients and return to office mandates have manifested into 3 days a week, 4 days a week. We walked through one space in particular. I don't know if you guys remember this. And it was a gorgeous setting. And it was floors of wonderful collaborative socialization spaces. And then we got to the areas where the individual work was to happen. And I was like, this is awful.
It's
depressing.
And also nobody was there.
And nobody was there.
There were tons of people in the community spaces and very few in the actual solo workspace.
So our collective light bulb went on like, all right, let's talk about this. Let's re-engage in this topic. And I think really it's not so much that it obviously our clients are thinking about it. There's RFPs around it. They're being planful about it, but our thought processes haven't really evolved along with the other space typologies and activities that we've really seen evolve. So there's a gap here probably in understanding and evolution of these settings. And I think that's where we're going to go. So Lauren, we're going to start with you.
Perfect.
When we talk about, we kind of break our year into 3 big buckets. So we're going to set up the journey here a little bit. But what are you seeing from your research as kind of shifts here that are influencing the way people are working right now?
Yeah, I think as we talked with our clients, as we did our own research in conjunction with Doris, this theme that sort of sparked for us was this idea that innovation requires this joint momentum, but it also equally requires individual space, protected time as an individual to work on the things that I'm bringing back to the team. So with that idea of what is protected time and what does that look like, we've been doing a ton of work over the last couple of years to understand nuances in my individual needs from an inclusive design perspective. We've been doing a ton of work to understand how this hybrid environment is changing the ways that we work. And now what we hope to do is bring some of those changes that we're seeing or that we're noticing or researching more and applying that more thoughtfully and intentionally to these focus spaces so that it's not just focus happens at a workstation, focus happens at a phone room. It's how does focus, how is that supported throughout all of the spaces that we need it to? It's very show up.
So our hypothesis then is that we should think about focus work manifested across 3 distinct kind of pillars. So tell us a little bit more about those 3 distinct pillars.
We've been thinking about that a lot. So I, as an individual, have needs. My brain works a certain way, right? I have different rhythms that I, for example, am a morning person. Give me a task to do. I like to do it first thing in the morning and check it off.
I'm the opposite.
And
Yep.
and so how do we like sort of explore our own individual rhythms, our own individual needs? And then I don't know if you know this, but Jordan and I do a lot of work together. So like how do we think of that then moving from the individual to now thinking about a team and like working in concert together to achieve a shared goal?
Yeah.
And then the third idea would be how does that manifest itself in our physical environment, or how does our physical environment inspire us to focus or like act as an on-ramp to these ideas of focus?
So from your perspective today, what could designing for focus really mean? What could that look like?
Yeah, I think again, looking at those 3 different pillars, understanding the nuances of I as an individual need a certain time to do that. I need some control over my calendar to do that. I need some inspiration from my environment, or I need some sort of specific input from my environment to
The
do
cultural
that.
permission to protect that time.
Totally.
And I think the fun thing about focus, which I was a little resistant to this idea at first, if I could be vulnerable.
Yes, she was. She was.
I was a little resistant to the idea. And part of it is because I think we don't need to convince anyone to prioritize focus, in my mind, right? Like, I think we all know it matters.
Mhm.
Organizations are constantly obsessed with like, how many workstations can I fit into an environment?
Mhm.
But what started to get me excited was to think about like, how can we explore what kind of space does support focus in a creative way, as opposed to just doing what's always been done.
Yeah.
Right. And I think what we landed on is this idea that there's actually more diversity in the ways that we can focus than in any other activity. Because I'm individually doing this thing, I could be in Bermuda, right? I could be in my airstream.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't that be
in
nice?
Bermuda?
Especially today.
Take an
Yeah,
airstream
and
to Bermuda.
I think too, like thinking of focus as a productive thing, like creating the actual things, but
Yep.
also focus could be respite, which
Yep.
is
Yep.
actually really productive too, right?
Yep.
Like I need a moment to reset. I need a
Set.
moment to like take a break, right?
Yeah.
The good idea comes to me when I'm actually not thinking deeply about the thing. Maybe.
Absolutely.
I think that's the thing we probably do the worst at protecting, though, too.
Yes.
I mean, I think we all get the idea behind, like you said, like setting time aside to focus, but it's that like, when do I get that like moment to just like reset? Because I feel like, I guess I'm being a little vulnerable here too. I go from back to back to back to back
Yes.
meetings. There's a point at which one of those meetings, I'm not my best self because I
sure.
didn't get a time to just be like, okay, like I don't need to think about anything.
Yeah.
And then I can come back and like start running with it. So I think really helping both the individual as well as the organization
Yeah.
understand that like, give people a moment, give people that tuck away space, like
Mhm.
protect that time as well,
And
right?
we've sort of been exploring this idea that I have sort of a baseline. My chronobiology, which
Yep.
is a word I'm excited to talk more about in the next year. But that
Only
is-
Dr. Lauren.
such a
is
science.
I was going to
excited.
say, I'm going to have to explain what chronobiology is to people now.
It is like that is part of who I am. And there are things that I can do to like foster
Right.
focus
Mhm.
work, and there are things that are going to detract from my ability to focus
Yep.
work. So how do we pull on those threads a little bit and explore those things that foster focus and those things that detract from focus on those levels of individual, organization, and environment, and be more intentional about that.
Good.
About the answers.
So we spent a little bit of time talking about creative work, maybe what we might collectively call productive work,
Right.
and producing something. And then kind of on the opposite end of that individual spectrum is my moment for respite. I'm stepping completely away. I'm doing something different to just take my mind off of the task. And then in between is reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know, Ricky, do you have any thoughts on what is reflection? How could the organization help reflection to occur? What does that maybe enable?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably from a space standpoint, it's probably similar, right? I'm going to take that moment to think about the thing, but I'm processing a lot. I might not be verbalizing, I might not be creating, but it's like I'm thinking about it, right? So I don't know. I mean, I think that that's something where, because you've made this comment of like, just because you're furiously typing doesn't actually mean you're working. So it's again, that recognition from an organizational standpoint that like, if somebody's just kind of sitting there leaning back, that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't mean that it's just about resetting. It's about like, you probably do some of your best thinking by yourself, you know,
Absolutely.
like, so.
And I think about reflection. When I think about that, I don't think about sitting in a full booth
Right.
Right.
by
No.
myself.
Yeah,
I think
right.
about maybe sitting by a window or
Yep.
sitting in somewhere that's more buzzy or
Mhm.
like a totally different environment that I might sit in to have a moment of rest.
Yeah.
Or somewhere where I can go and do something secondary, right? Like
That's
the
right.
thing that's not this, the thing, sorry, that was like ASMR. The thing that's not this, the thing that's not like in a meeting, the thing that's not sitting in a phone room, but like, are there opportunities for me to go and put a puzzle together and let my brain, let my brain move while my hands move? Like I think, or sit outside and like feel that we talk about this in trauma informed design, to like feel the feel the wind on your skin and the sun in the sky. But like, where can I go to find that kind of like secondary activity that's soft, that lets my brain continue to process?
Like,
but
that
gives
is
me
my
something to
drive
do.
home.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I find that if I've had
That
a
was my drive.
crazy busy day
Mhm.
with no breaks,
Yeah.
I will drive around the block a couple times before I pull into
That's
the
fine.
house, and I have to transition to the next hard. It's not hard. It's just like the
Yeah.
next thing,
Right, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's going to actively need a different portion of my brain. It's like I have to finish cataloging the things in a
Yeah.
reflective
Yeah.
sort of way
Yeah.
before I can put the box away and take down the next box,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
And otherwise I'm cranky.
Right.
I'm not taking, I mean, my kids
Or you're
get
distracted.
obsessed. I'm
Right?
cranky, and yeah, because
Cranky
I'm
and distracted.
and distracted.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Tough parenting moment.
All right. So we're kind of summarizing that within the first third of the year as dimensions of focus, and excited to dig in and tease those apart a little bit more. And then as we move through the year, we're going to move into a space where we're calling exploring rhythms and reimagining workplace. And the idea here, as Lauren mentioned at the beginning, was then obviously we don't work alone. We work in concert with other individuals. And so, Jordan, what do you have some thoughts here around
I have
not my
so many
personal,
thoughts.
all of the rhythms?
Yeah, very, very thoughtful, very thought heavy. So when we think about this, what's exciting to me is like we're spending this first part of the year really doing some self-reflection, right? Understanding how I work better, understanding how I think, understanding the things that I can put in place to help myself do my best work, or help myself focus in the best way possible. But the reality is, like, thankfully, we are not working in silos, literally, right? We're not working isolated from the world around us, which is both good and bad. Right. It's good in the sense that we have access to these people around us to enhance what we do and to build community. But that means that there are other levers, other pulls that are dragging us out of ideal state. Right. Ideal state is probably just working in our own environment in exactly our own way. So the reality is we are all going to have an independent
Ideal state for the individual.
Yes,
Right.
but
Not
individual,
ideal
not in the world.
state
Like, I want to be
for-
clear. I
right,
do
yeah.
not want to exist
Right.
alone on an island. I would
Right.
die. It would be so bad. But yes.
And we would never innovate and like
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So ideal state in the sense of like we could execute our most ideal focus process.
Yeah, that's right.
If we are alone. But as we consider like even the four of us sitting here, we all operate very differently. The way that we work and think and process is all very different. And so, we're all going to come in with an idea of what works best for us, what our rhythm is, the way that we might approach the day, the project, the season of life.
Yeah.
But what happens is those things all start to intersect as we find moments. We need to find moments together to work on things. We need to find moments apart to do our own work. We started talking about this relative to trimester 1 content, but this idea of like, when we come together, is there synchronicity in that or is there polarity? So does the way that we work together somehow synchronize, or maybe Ricky and I have a very, I'm not saying we do, but maybe we have a very different way of working or approaching things. So that creates this kind of polarity in how we work together.
Which sometimes leads to an even greater outcome. But just that's a side
Potentially.
note. That's probably a topic for the
Potentially.
future.
Right. But I mean, like in that polarity of rhythm, sometimes that means maybe Ricky works best at 7 p.m. and I work best at 6 a.m. and we need to work together on a project, or we need to bring our best selves.
Right.
And so like, how do we find that alignment?
That's right.
And I was processing in the car I was reflecting in the car
Reflecting,
on
yeah.
my way here, and I was thinking about some beautiful stock imagery that Dr. Lauren Gant put into the presentation on synchronicity, which is synchronized divers, right?
Yes.
These two people moving in exact parallel motion. And what I started to take, let me know if I take this metaphor too far, but I was thinking about this idea that even synchronized divers are not synchronized all the time. Right. They start their day differently. Maybe one of them wakes up at 6, one of them wakes up at 8. They're eating different things for breakfast. One of them goes for a walk in the morning. One of them goes for a drive, whatever it is. So it's not about like aligning everything across each of our individual rhythms. It's Lauren and I understanding ourselves well, finding that moment when we come together in synchronicity and working together, whether that's a project, a meeting, and our time together.
And that took a ton of time and a ton of effort to get to that
Right.
synchronization between these two
Communication,
very different
understanding.
people.
Absolutely.
And so talk a little bit about organizationally, culturally.
Yeah.
What could we think about policy-wise, team leadership-wise to kind of help with that team philosophy?
I think a lot of it comes down to this understanding of transparency, communication. I think a lot of times we drive into these engagements assuming everyone works in the same way that we work, or we just never have the conversation about what works best for each other. I know we had a conversation early on when we started working together about like, if you need something, text is the way to go, because then I'm going to see it. I'm going to know it's something that I need to respond to immediately. So having those open lines of communication to be able to understand what works best for all, and then having the permission to protect that time. Having that permission culturally to say like, I work best at this time, you work best at this time. So where do we find that alignment and how we work together?
I think it's about planned and unplanned interruptions, right? We're going to have these planned interruptions. We have the meetings that we have to like work around, and the unplanned, the texts or the emails, the ding, and how do you manage that? Like, what is our culture around? You have to respond to a text right away, but an email can wait for a couple hours, or what? Like, how are we managing that? 100% of that. So,
And you mentioned briefly that a rhythm can be a day, it can be a project, it could be a season.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important for a leader to kind of lay out where are the bumpy parts of the year, where are the extra outputs of energy or all hands on deck moments versus the seasons that are a little bit more go at our own individual paces. And I think that's important to kind of be collectively understood there too.
Yeah.
We also talked a little bit about a concept of meeting hygiene.
Oh,
I want to know.
I like how you point to Lauren. Is it because she's the
I
cleanest
floated
or
this-
needs this the most?
She created, I don't know if she came up with this, but she
meeting
floated
hygiene.
this. So talk
It was
about
a little
that.
polarizing.
Mhm.
Just really like taking a look at our meetings and how we are being good stewards of the time that we are spending together in meetings. And what is the intention of the meeting? Why are people on that meeting? Do they, have to prepare in advance? And maybe taking some of these meetings offline, doing them asynchronously, maybe checking the cadence of our meetings, just making sure that we are using that time as a commodity in a responsible way.
I often tell a story about how, and when we talk about digital equity and that very idea, about there was a meeting, like I live, 75 miles from Muscatine. There was a meeting that was on my calendar that I really wanted to be in person for because I wanted to advocate for my idea. I wanted to have the power in the room. I drove in my 75 miles. I got into the room that was set up for this meeting, and I was the only one there. Everyone else was calling into this meeting. And so it was because there wasn't hygiene around the intention of the meeting, around the expectations, around where everyone would be. And so I, ate into my day in an unnecessary way to advocate in person. And it just happened to be an all virtual meeting.
Yep.
We don't have to go with meeting hygiene either.
I like it.
I love a
It
polarizing.
perks your attention. It's like,
I like hygiene. It's a good topic in general.
Right,
I
yeah.
have children in need of hygiene.
Breaking news. We like hygiene here
We
at
like
Allsteel.
hygiene. Breaking news. All right. So I think we pride ourselves at Allsteel of connecting research and ideas ultimately to physical spaces, to applications, to workplace design, and then eventually furniture. Right. So let's talk about our kind of last concept as we round out the year, which is harmonizing space. And so this collective idea of the team, the individual, how it all comes together, and ultimately how does the physical environment support that work? So Ricky, what are you thinking might we need to think about differently? What has maybe evolved past current applications or current thought processes when it comes to workspace?
I mean, in full transparency, a lot of this is just reinforcing what we've been talking about, right? Like when we're thinking about focus work, when we're thinking about teams coming together, how does that happen for that organization? There's going to be certain things that are unique to that organization. There's going to be certain populations and mixes within that organization that need to be supported in a different way. And so I really think the more we can be thoughtful about who the org is, the work that they do, and the population that they're supporting, the more successful we'll be. But it's also, let's really think about these adjacencies. Let's think about how can I easily access those spaces? It's that whole game of like, if I need a space, I'm not going to go to the complete other side of the room when I need it immediately, right? So really thinking about like, how do we start to give enough variety within the space so that people can find the thing that makes them feel good, that makes them feel the most supported? It's something that I really try to reinforce with so many of the conversations that I'm having of like, you don't necessarily have to tell somebody why that space exists and what it's trying to do for them. They will naturally gravitate towards it because of that. So the more I think we can have more intuitive spaces versus having to explain. I mean, I think we're also a huge proponent of there's an education that we need to have, like this user's manual idea, because as we start to introduce these new ideas, to just put it somewhere and assume people are going to know how to use it, sometimes it does take a level of education. But I think it's this mix between these intuitively supportive spaces and these kind of like more enriched designed spaces, and that education of like, we created this based off of you do these things.
That's right.
And we're trying to think of it a little bit different. Just because it used to happen around a 6-person table doesn't mean that that was actually the best space for
That's
that,
right.
you
It's
know?
just how it manifests itself.
I was just talking to a client the other day who was trying to say that everybody's taking team calls at their dedicated workstation, and people are at their dedicated workstation trying to focus. So how do we? They wanted something to put on the wall to stop the acoustics, but I think that is a good illustration that the way we've worked has changed, and our workplace hasn't evolved to make those spaces intuitive. Maybe there needs to be some training about how do you take teams calls at your desk versus where do you focus, and really looking at that culture, what's going on there, and supporting spaces to foster those.
And we have clients playing around with that in several ways. There's clients color coding. We have areas specifically designated on the floor for where you take calls, where you don't. We tried something interesting within our own campus. We have a deep focus room, and the first application of product in the space, we're like, that doesn't work, but it's evolved. We've evolved it probably 3 times over the last year. And recently, a leader asked if we could change this space into a meeting room because we're tight on meeting rooms. And the facility manager has such great data on utilization and feedback from the actual employees, we call them members, on how much they love this space, that she was able to say no, and here's why.
Protect it.
And so that protected ability to say this is a space typology that's meeting a vital need that we have, that was really great. And just loving that notion of how are we able to tell those stories, how are we able to advocate for those spaces. And then obviously too, we lived in beta. We absolutely we created a space, we tried some stuff, we chuckled at the first application, it was really bad, and we evolved it, and now we're at a spot that's really resonating. So I think that's maybe the next one. We've talked about a lot about living in beta, but this notion that we're going to trial some things.
No, and I think you do need to trial things, because it's like, it can sound like it can be hitting all the boxes. It can be hitting all the goals, and it still sometimes just falls flat. And I think that that's okay. Like, we should have this ability to make a few mistakes, and I hate calling it a mistake, because is it a mistake if you prove that it didn't? You learned from it, right? So it's kind of, I do think what we're seeing more clients do that, like trial little things out. Some are doing it a little bit more thoughtfully than others, but it's like, I think the fact that they're even trying it and exploring is important, right? Because I think the conversation around phone calls at the desk is such an interesting one. Like, everybody hates it, but everybody keeps doing it. So how do we design for that? Or do we design for it? Or is it just a protocols thing? And I don't totally know the answer to it, in all honesty.
Or you let
but
the
I
phone
like
calls
the
happen there,
conversation.
but you walk away to do the deep focus work in a separate area.
Right.
That's
Because 2 ways it could go.
what's the percentage breakdown, and how do you support it?
Yeah.
All right. So as we kind of wrap on this concept of environmental space, we are excited too that throughout the course of 2026, we're going to be talking about some great products that we have launching.
As
And
the kids
while
would say, let's go.
let's go, and it's going to be fire.
It's fire.
It's fire.
And 6-7.
There's 6-7. Wow, we went there. Okay, we might have 6 and 7.
I'm just trying to get views on this, you know? Like, I'm trying to up our numbers.
Okay, so categories of our 6 to 7 products that we're launching. Actually, I have no idea what the count is in total. Let's share just a high level. What are some of the solutions we're thinking about?
Yeah, I think like the way that we're thinking about the vast needs in floor space and the way that we're designing the floor, we're also thinking about what are the needs that product needs to deliver for focus work. So we're looking at a tasking solution that's pretty ergonomic and task intensive. We're looking at some solutions that are a little bit more semi-enclosed, get kind of in the neighborhood, but separated from your team a bit. And then we're also looking at solutions that are much more enclosed and private and acoustically mindful of the kinds of the work that people need to do in those spaces. So we're really excited about applying some of what we're working on regarding focus work to these products.
We're also applying it to physical space. We're really excited about what we have going on in our showroom in Chicago for Design Days. So first of all, you're all invited, 345 North Morgan. Put it on your calendar. Come visit. Certainly during Design Days or any day of the year. But any spaces you want to tease out that we've got going within?
Am I allowed to? Am I allowed to tease out?
Yeah, tease out a few spaces.
Hot take. Yeah, we'll bleep it out if it's not
It's too much of a hot take.
Yeah, no, I mean, so the showroom's always a fun place to explore, right? And we get to experiment a little. And so like, I'm really excited about kind of this idea of how teams come together because it isn't, I mean, sometimes it is just for an hour or two, but other times it's more intensive, right? Like I just think about like when our team gets together, sometimes it's for like a day and a half and we get a ton done. What should that space look like, right? What should a space look like that we're going to occupy for an entire day, but we might have to take a phone call for a minute. We might have to go get on a video chat with somebody for a little bit.
We have to do some focus reflective.
We might have to do some, yeah, right. And so it's like, we really wanted to have a little bit of fun with that and try to create a space that could support a team in that way. It could just be used for half an hour and fine, but like we are finding that teams are coming together and kind of doing these sprints. And so creating a space that offers just the right amount of variety, still has ergonomic support, but allows us to come together in multiple ways. So I didn't give too much of that space away, but you will see a space that is all of those concepts kind of like coming to fruition. So
I'm excited.
I'm pretty stoked about
and
it.
selfishly, like I love the idea of us being able.
I know.
Oh yeah,
as well, like,
no, for
thinking about,
sure.
like, what that means. I know that's not the whole point of
We're
it.
going to pre-book it for September.
We're going to just book it out.
We're there. We got our
priority
That's
booking.
right. Priority. I think we get priority status.
I think so.
All right. Also, as a sneak peek teaser, first product drops in March. So stay tuned. We'll be back with that product drop coming. So let's wrap this up a little bit here. So step back, look at a bigger picture. Why, again, are we thinking we need to focus on focus? What is it that we really think maybe hasn't changed, or what area have we just maybe not fully understood fundamental shifting? Any thoughts on this?
I think focus is a core element of all of the other activities that are happening in the office that we've been talking about for the year. And we have to re-examine how focus is showing up in today's work environment and really dedicating some time and space to making that an effective solution in our work environments.
Yeah. I mean, the big shift was hybrid is real.
Yeah.
And it's fully implemented
And not
yet
going away.
and not going away. And we've shifted a lot of other space types, but we have not shifted kind of the primary where heads down work is supposedly happening.
Right.
And so we think there's an opportunity to kind of give some focus work areas some creativity and to push in there a little bit more.
And I think my initial resistance was tied to this idea that there's maybe this implication that in this conversation, focus has to happen in the office space, but it doesn't, right? We're still talking about the reality that focus can happen in all these different places. But the truth is, like, even when we do come into the office as like a hybrid team member, I need a place that feels meaningful for me to have those moments. And so I think it's that exploration of that and the evolution of how we focus in the office that has me excited about where we're headed.
And I think it's this tension that makes our content so good.
All right. So throughout 2026, we really invite you all to join us on this journey as we rethink what focus is, not as a nice to have or even as a necessary evil, but as something that deserves innovation and some intentional design, maybe in a way we haven't recently. So join us as we explore the dimensions of focus, discover new rhythms and harmonize spaces, and really think about how do we support this super meaningful work that happens. So this conversation is really going to set the stage then for us. There's lots of things we're going to uncover.
A lot of pressure.
And we'll continue to explore it across 2026 and what this all means.
Season 4.
We're excited. So thank you, Jordan, Lauren, Ricky,
Andrea.
on behalf of all of us. Stay tuned for more episodes on the Tell Me More podcast.
Thanks for joining us on Tell Me More. For more insights and stories, subscribe on Apple Podcast and Spotify, and connect with us on social @Allsteel. See you next time.